Rob, thank you so much for being here, sir. Absolute pleasure to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I wanted to jump off at this point, which is very, very broad, and I think this is a good way to start this. What intrigues you about music
Ooh.
at the core of it? What is the thing that grabs you about it?
As far as being a musician, like the creative process, like making it, writing it, building it, recording and production, that's my meat and potatoes. I really like. I've gotten to a point now where like I don't care about performing, and like I don't. I honestly don't know if I'll do it again. I think I'm good.
I like how you're building up the mystique, so like people when they hear that you're performing, like, oh my gosh, he said that he might not do this anymore. This is
Yeah,
this is
right,
great. Yeah.
right. And just like I remember that was how Jeff Mangum was for me, the Neutral Milk Hotel guy. Like
Okay.
when I got hip to that band, he hadn't played in years, and it was like a really big deal when he was going to finally play these really rare shows. And I went, and I thought it was awesome. And then like a few months later, he announced like he just did like years of touring after that. So now I'm like, oh, I guess it really wasn't that special.
Yeah, how do you feel when you hear about those bands doing that? I think it was Guns N' Roses, right? They're like, this is it, this is the last time, we're not coming back out, and then they fucking done it like five other
Yeah,
times
I
since
mean,
then.
the Stones have been doing that since like the mid '90s. I feel like the Dead do it every year now, and like people are like, "Oh, you're not going to go? It's the last one." It's like it was the last one 4 times ago. Like, how many? Those ticket prices aren't going down, so
The last four were
I
the
don't think they're
last
getting any
times.
better. So yeah.
People love John Mayer. People love him.
Hey, man, I hated that guy on a like. My sister was into him when we were little kids, and like
Mhm.
back when he was wearing like three pop collared shirts playing Crossroads festivals and stuff. And I was like, this guy can play guitar, but he seems like a ham sandwich.
He looks
And
sleek.
yeah, yeah. But now, like once I saw him play with him, I was like, all right, he's pretty good. I'll relinquish my angst towards him.
For now. For now.
Yeah, yeah, until he earns it back.
Jury's still out on that. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I need to like kick it with him, but
Do you
uh,
think he'd be a good hang if you were to get dinner with him or something like that?
I feel like he seems like I feel like he's got like social chameleon abilities. Like he strikes me as the kind of guy who would like he would feel out what me and my buddies were like, and he would rise to the or stoop to the hang.
Yeah, that's you. Those people are interesting to know. You're like, wow, all right, this guy's
Yeah, but like he
he's
can
on it.
also mix it up with like probably Elon and Dave Chappelle and like all those guys. So
Yeah, he's he's fluid in that.
yeah, yeah, he's socially fluid.
Yeah, socially fluid. um, did your parents play music themselves?
My mom played like drums in elementary school band or something. And that was pretty much it. And the answer is really no. But I found my first guitar. It was like a guitar. My dad was in the military. He was a Marine for almost 30 years. So not a whole lot of musical bones in his body. But at one point when he was stationed in Japan, he bought like a Yamaha acoustic guitar that ended up like untouched and in the attic where I found it like 15 years later. So yeah, and I still have it. That's my first guitar.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, so I found I was playing saxophone in like elementary school band in middle school, and I was kind of like on my way to being done with that
Mhm.
when I found the guitar, and I was like, oh, this is great because music rules. I love music, but I did not really want to be a saxophone player.
I mean, it does work out for some people. Bill
Yeah,
Clinton, yeah, that worked.
yeah, that's true. He rode that all the way to the top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it opens doors,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
certainly. Were they playing music around the house at all?
Some, yeah, it was a lot of like the local oldies station. But my dad would go through phases, which probably has influenced the way that I listen to music because I tend to like, especially now or in the last 20 years of like the internet era, uh, I go pretty deep when I get into something like, I remember getting into Miles in college and like I had to have it all. And I mean, that was like the Soul Seek days too. So it was like, it was really easy. But like, anytime I would get into like, Wilco, I'm like, I got to have all these records now. And whoever it was at the time. And yeah, so it was like, my dad would be like, for a few months, he'd be like really into Willie Nelson. He had some great phases that were early good influences on me. Like Willie and Johnny Cash. And my dad grew up in Torrance, so he was like a big Beach Boys guy. But the hits. And he didn't want to hear any of that weird shit with the fire hats and
Yeah, and
what I
it's too
think is fun
experimental.
stuff. Yeah. So yeah, like they got me, my early albums and like the early stuff I would listen to would be like whatever they were playing or the oldie station. And then like I had a lot of soundtrack tapes when I was a kid.
Ooh, it's good.
It was like, oh, that Mighty Ducks theme song, had to have that on cassette tape. And I can still hear it in my head. And I feel like I had the Top Gun soundtrack with all that Kenny Loggins on it.
That's great. At least 2 songs that I can
Yeah,
remember.
dude. Right to the Danger Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually recently watched the new Top Gun, and I was like, I guess there was a sufficient amount of Kenny Loggins in it.
Was there? I haven't caught the new one, but I did think about that. It's like, was Kenny on board with this one?
It was overhyped. A lot of people were like, dude, you got to go see it in theaters. It's great. Like, it's fucking Top Gun. Like, how, not to besmirch our Lord and Savior Tom Cruise.
Right. Hey, Tom, we're just fucking around, man. We're not.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. All jokes. Yeah.
We're all good. We're not trying to piss anybody off in your organization at all either.
No, definitely not.
No.
This town's too small to say that too loud.
Yeah, no. Gonna have to bleep that. Definitely gonna have to bleep
that. It's worth watching, I guess.
It would have been funny if they used just logins in was it logins in Mencia, right?
Is it Messina? Yeah.
Or Messina, yeah. That'd be funny if they just used that catalog of music.
Yeah. Or just like use other soundtracks he did, like the well, I guess he did do Groundhog Day too, didn't he?
He did do that, yeah.
I think that one, and then but I was thinking Caddyshack.
Yeah, the I'm All Right. That's it.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking the same song. I don't know if that's Groundhog Day. Maybe I'm just thinking of the groundhog from Caddyshack.
Yeah, you're thinking about the
Yeah.
But both have Bill Murray, so I understand where you're coming from with that.
Hey, it's all connected.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, I mean, Kenny Loggins could have had his hand in
he might have had something in What About Bob too. I don't know. I don't know that he didn't. Yeah, I had a lot of soundtracks when I was a kid, and I remember just like gleaning stuff from the radio. Like, I think the first tape I ever bought for myself was Boys to Men.
Good one, classic.
Whatever had Motown Philly on it, whichever album that was, and then like I eased from there into like Weezer and Offspring and stuff like that, and then from then I was like addicted to. I picked the radio stations that I liked instead of listening to the oldies ones.
You said, "Hey, I know what channel plays Kenny Loggins."
Exactly, and I don't need that one anymore.
What song have you heard enough times you're like, I don't need to hear that song ever again? That's just one that's been overplayed. It's just, I'm done with it. It's ran its course in my life, and it's been played too many times.
You know what? I've been hearing at the grocery store a lot. I'm not quite sure that this qualifies because I'm sure there's worse stuff out there. Like I owned this compact disc in the 90s, but I've been hearing Alanis Morissette at the grocery store a lot lately. Like there's one day, my wife's birthday was recently, and she had like a special request for something that she wanted me to get at this specific grocery store. So I ended up doing like, I feel like this is such an LA thing, but I did like the double grocery store run where I like go to Albertsons for certain things, and then I got to go to whatever the other place was. The
Gelson's or something.
Nice. Yeah, it wasn't Gelson's. It was Bristol Farms.
Oh,
and, yeah, but nice. It's like they got the good cakes at Bristol Farms. But I hear Isn't That Ironic at the first grocery store, and then I go to the next one and I hear the same song, and it's like, I don't think this is irony. I think it's just like maybe really efficient like synchronization of her catalog. But
they're the same playlist.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I should have paid more attention to what came on after, because maybe it was the same playlist. But yeah, grocery. Honestly, man, that's probably a sick Spotify playlist to get on. Like,
yeah,
good placement. Yeah. if
You
you
got
know
to be in
anybody.
the know about it. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
to
yeah.
know
I don't know
somebody that
anybody
will.
at Spotify, so I can't hook that up. But
Yeah, or at an Albertsons or Vaughn's or whatever.
I could probably get a foot in at Albertsons. I spend a lot of time in there.
I can confirm that grocery stores do play the same music over and over again. I used to work at a
Yeah.
grocery store, and I would hear.
Oh yeah. Is it like satellite radio or?
I don't know. I don't know where they were playing it from either. I never found that, but it would be it would have to. It wasn't satellite radio. No, it would have to have been like a playlist of some sort. I don't know who's playing it though.
I
But I
worked
like
at
to
a
hear some different, some variety. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you got to shake it up. I don't mind hits from the 80s, 90s, and today. Uh, but yeah, I worked at a Five Guys when I was in college, the burger joint,
Mhm.
and a humbling experience that everyone should have at some point. Maybe. Uh, anyways, we had some kind of satellite radio that it was like FM Gold or something. But it was like I learned about a lot of 80s Paul McCartney from that station that I didn't know about.
Now, were those songs that you still play today on occasion? You'll throw it on. No.
I'm like love Sir Paul, but I'm not like I never really have gone in the huge deep dive of his solo catalog.
Mhm.
I recently found God, I'm gonna have to pull this up because I recently found a McCartney track that I was like it was on some like algorithm fed playlist, and where is it? I didn't know it was him. I was like, oh, this is sweet, and then I realized what it was. I was like, huh, it
It
was
ended
like
up being a Beatle.
oddly psychedelic. Uh, where was it? Too many playlists these days.
And this is from the newer catalog of Sir Paul McCartney's music.
I think it might have been a Wings tune, so not new.
But newer than like Abbey Road or something like that.
Yeah, post Beatles. I'll think of it. It'll come to me. Maybe it was on Band on the Run. I don't know. I like again. I like Paul McCartney. Zero. I might be on a wild goose chase here. I don't. It'll come to me at some point, and I'll blurt it out.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
We'll get it in post. Yeah.
Yeah. uh, yeah. So I was just before you rang. I was earlier. I listened to the interview that you did with Ryan Polly.
Great guy.
That's my boy.
Love Ryan.
Yeah, he's a swell fellow.
Very, 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 very nice guy. I had him on. Yeah, that was might have been a year ago now, but yeah, super, super nice.
I only got through like the first half before I had to walk away for a minute, and it was all you were telling a really good story about. Do you know what it was? It was
yeah.
About, I think party crashing. I didn't get to
Yes.
the end though, so I didn't. I feel like I missed the. I'll have to go circle back later so I can get the grand finale.
It's a great story. Yeah, that was not this Halloween, but last Halloween I had infiltrated somebody's party in off of up there in the hills of your neck of the area, right next to the old Bristol Farms that you attend.
Oh
No,
yeah.
no, but it was up there in like
that would be
Mulholland Drive.
South Pass, Bristol Farms.
Give out the address. Shout them out. They're proud sponsor of this podcast here.
Yeah.
Farms.
That song was called 1985.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's one of the most maybe it's like the fourth most played song on the Band on the Run album. So it's from that era.
Top 5, pretty good.
Really, really good. It's really good.
What's one artist or band that you would like to see that has since passed on that you would love to see like live
posthumously?
Yes.
Now, are we talking about going back in time to like their finest era?
Yeah, your put back to whatever.
I don't have an answer specifically, but there are a lot of fun ones. There are like, I feel like so many things are really well documented. Like a lot of, for instance, the Dead, like everything was recorded and there's video of so much of it. Like, I don't need to go back to one of those but like you know the band Television from
Yeah.
New York in the late 70s? I feel like it would be fucking rad to go see them play at like CBGB's or something like, or yeah, I'll say the Talking Heads, but
That's
like
another great
before
one.
they blew up.
Mhm.
And yeah, when it was like, yeah, let's go. I'll go Talking Heads, CBGB's, 1977.
At their most artistic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they got pretty like, but least theatrical, probably at that point. Like, didn't have the whole stop making sense production. Although it would be cool to see Bernie Worrell in the band too.
Mhm. That original lineup there, maybe not original, because I guess like Tina wasn't like the original bassist. I think
She
there's somebody
was,
else. Oh, was she?
yeah, she was, but she didn't know how to play the bass.
Okay.
There's cool stories about them, like they before they did their first album, I have this LP that's like unreleased CBS demos, and I mean, of course, somebody released it now because I own it, but uh, it's like all the tunes from their first two albums, but like not those versions, and it's before they added Jerry Harrison, the keyboard player, who was in the Modern Lovers, and yeah, it's the story about this is that like Tina was learning the bass parts in the cab, like on the way to the studio. They're like, yeah, just play this note the whole time. It'll be great.
That's wild that she was not proficient in the band and then like ended up making the
Yeah,
one of the most
I mean, I think that it's like part of the charm and like her unique playing style is that she just can't, like, kind of same with Kim Gordon and Sonic Youth, where like I don't think they necessarily planned to be musicians, and then they were just kind of found themselves in these situations, and they're like, "I'll figure it out."
they just fell into it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like they're both of them. You could call art rock, and I think they came to it more from the art perspective.
Mhm. Which is an interesting take on it, and it leads to different kind of sounds and stuff, which is and then
Yeah,
utilized through regular regular music that is solely purposed for the music itself and not really derived from art, you
yeah,
know?
it's cool.
Yeah. Super interesting path. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Talking Heads, really small band, late 70s was when they were created, and a lot of people don't know about them. Really undercover kind of band. Didn't get too many plays
No,
at all.
no,
No.
I don't think they ever had a big hit, or
Mm-mm.
no,
Or hits.
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
No, Earl, not a chance.
Definitely not multiples at all. But yeah,
Yeah,
good.
and like I think the last thing that they would have done is a movie with John Goodman.
Yeah, which is, I mean, and a lot of people don't know who that is either. So we're just going to rabbit hole at this point. Yeah, it's just kind of
Yeah,
niche kind of stuff here.
he did a off Broadway rendition of Fred Flintstone. I think that's what he's best known for.
Yeah. The name definitely rings a bell in my ear for sure, but can't really pinpoint him throughout that. That's it. Moving forward though, um, you're originally from Virginia, right? That's
True.
where you were
Yeah.
born.
Well, I mentioned that my dad was in the military, so I bounced around a good bit, but like by like late elementary school and through high school, I was in, I guess, through college, and then yeah, I was in Virginia for a while. That was where I spent the longest amount of time. But I also, like, we lived in 29 Palms for a couple years when I was a kid, and I was born in New Orleans, so bounced around. But yeah, I identify with Virginia for sure.
Those were the crucial years were spent.
Yeah, yeah, the best and the worst ones, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Kind of the point in life where John Hughes bases a lot of his movies, just
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
bracket there. Yeah,
yeah. I was standing outside of like Virginia A-frame cul-de-sac houses with my boombox.
yeah,
Yeah,
classic
yeah,
John Goodman movie. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
Um, what kind of music scene was around you at that point when you were growing up around there?
The first time high school was just like you like what you and your buddies like, and you're like, I remember a lot of like I had a band with my friends, and we just jammed in my buddy's basement. We only played one show, and it was our own high school graduation party. And like,
Everyone showed up, good attendance.
yeah, exactly. Great first and last gig for Pipin' Hot Gravy was the name of the band. Yeah, that was a good
Hot name.
Yeah, coming in hot. But I recall a lot of like everyone was trying to musically one up each other in a way of like, it's like, oh, like even within one band, like, oh, you like that record? Well, like, have you heard the deep cuts, bro, on the early stuff, that kind of thing. And then there was also like, I feel like my buddies and I kind of had this culture of like who can find the next rad thing? Like, oh, he knew about it first. Like that matters at all. Like, I even remember this is like guys being like, no, don't tell so and so about this band, dude. Like, we got to keep this band to ourselves. Death Cab for Cutie. Like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that secret didn't get out until right now. Yeah, I get you.
Right.
Check them out.
Yeah. They'll blow up now.
Yeah. I mean, with the listeners of this podcast, yeah, it's soaring. Yeah.
Written in stone. Yeah, I went to school in Richmond in Central Virginia, and I studied jazz stuff there. So I was like, there were a lot of jazz. There was a cool community of musicians. That was the first time I felt like I was part of a musical community, or even like adjacent to one. I don't know how part of it I was. Like, I went and saw a lot of shows of guys that were older than me, and then that inspired me. And a lot of those guys, it was cool because like aside from that, it was all guys that went to school with me or like were a few years older than me. But aside from that, this city didn't have like a huge active music scene that I was aware of. But they do now, and it's a lot of those guys that are still there, which is very cool. You know that label Space Bomb Records?
No, I don't. But they're based out of Virginia, I'm
Yeah,
assuming?
they're based in Richmond. One of the main guys is this dude Matthew E. White, but they produce a lot of other people too. I could name some, but I don't know if you know who they are. Maybe they seem big to me because I went to college with them. But yeah, there's a lot of cool
big nonetheless
doing cool things there. Yeah, the community there has come a long way since my time there, which has been cool to watch. And then I lived in Charlottesville for a while after that, which was like the first like cool hip indie rock community I felt like I like tapped into and was part of. Charlottesville's got a pretty rad history. That's where some of the founding guys from Pavement went to school, and some of the same guys in Silver Jews, which are pretty big bands for me at that time. And so it was cool. Like, I was getting into these bands that had like their roots in Charlottesville, and while I was there, and it's pretty cool. Like, I was a big Pavement guy for a while, and so I loved that. Like, I had a show on WTJU, the radio station, and I like every time I was in there, I was like, this is where Malcolmus used to host his radio show. That's fucking cool. And like, it's really not that cool, but
you're following the footsteps.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been in LA since like 2014.
Okay.
And yeah, Ryan was actually one of the first people that I met out here. I had a band called Big Air, and it was like pretty, like a lot of feedback, a lot of yelling, pretty garage rock, like kind of caught up in like the whole like Ty Segall sound of that era, and which I was obsessed with at the time. And anyways, I like self-released this tape when I was still in Virginia, and this dude in Minnesota, Matt, who runs this label Forged Artifacts, he reached out to me and was like, hey man, I don't know how we connected, but he was like, I see you self-release this tape, let me know when you got something else, I'd love to put it out. And that was like right as I was moving here. And then I like worked on a bunch of demos like right when I got here, and Matt linked me up with the guy who ended up being the drummer for me. And then we went like, yeah, the first time I met up with like the first guys I played music with here was at Ryan's show at the Echo. So yeah, it's kind of funny that this dude who I had never met, who was in the middle of the country, was introducing me to people that are like my best buddies now. So
that's awesome.
yeah, so a lot of good times with Ryan since then.
So Big Air was initially created in North Carolina. Is
It
that
was
where
in
the
Virginia.
inception? Oh, Virginia.
Yeah, so it was me. It was just me and a drummer. I had been playing bass in a band that was like kind of a shoegazy band called the Fire Tapes for a while, and that was cool. That was kind of my like the first like really active band that I played in, and I didn't play bass very well. I just was like, sure, I'll do it. And so I like learned how to play bass in a band being in that band. It was just cool. And they were all a couple years older than me. So it was also like, it was kind of like my indie rock college era. Cause like they just hit me to all this stuff that I didn't know about. And, uh, it's like when I got really into Yo La Tengo and Silver Jews and all that, like stuff that I had missed in my high school years. Um, yeah, so anyways, I came like we had that band was really fun, but all our songs were like 10 minutes long, like pretty meandering, and like a lot of it was like kind of slow. And so
Experimenting,
yeah,
art stuff. Yeah.
but like Big Air was pretty like reactionary from that. Like I was like, I'm gonna write like the first tape was like 17 minutes long. It had like 10 songs on it. And like so they're all like less than 2 minutes. And just like a lot of loud feedback, and I yelled a lot. It was like getting out a lot of like residual angst. But I was like in my mid 20s, I guess, at that point. Uh and then yeah, so I started it with a guy in Virginia, and then when I moved out here, I kind of wanted to ditch the name and start over, but the label guy and some other people were like, no, you should keep it, it's a good name, and like you should keep playing those songs and stuff. So I stuck with it for a few years, and then yeah, I did like I guess I put out 2 Big Air records in LA, and we played a bunch of shows for a few years, and then that kind of wound down around like 2018.
So I'm pretty recently. It kind of came to a
Yeah, it
close.
was like not far enough before COVID that it didn't have anything to do with that. It was like we lost a member, and that kind of like deflated the momentum a little bit, and I also was just like, drifting towards wanting to do things under my own name and have a little more like having a band is hard sometimes, and that it's just like I mean I definitely miss it just because it was so fun, and like it's a good camaraderie. It's in a way that like playing music with people is like pretty special like relationship building process. Like you don't it's almost like having a relationship with people, you know what I mean? It's like you just get so close with each other, and you know each other's like ideas and instincts, and it is cool. And I miss it in that way, but it also is like herding cats a lot of the time. Like I don't love booking and promoting and getting a gig and then getting asked to play at like 12:30 at night on like a Wednesday night at Harvard and Stone and like butthole of Hollywood. And you're like, I don't want to do this. Like, and then afterwards getting shit for not bringing out enough people. I'm like, you made us play after midnight. People have lives. Yeah. So that kind of stuff I don't miss at all. So since then I've kind of just leaned into production and stuff. Somehow I became a mastering guy through COVID.
Your master. I mean,
Yeah. Hey,
fun.
I actually really like it, man. It's a cool way to be involved with more projects and not have like massive time investments. Like I can knock that out within usually in a day, depending on how much material there is, maybe a couple days. It's still like getting to be creatively involved in some things without having to go like, dedicate weeks to it.
Right.
Yeah.
When did that kind of initial interest within mixing and mastering come into play for you?
Pretty early. Yeah, I started getting into it in college. Was when I first got like, some cracked version of what did I have? I think I had New Window, which was technically like a video editor. It was like the souped up version of Cubase.
Multi-purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
it
It,
serves
it
different
it works
interests.
great. I definitely didn't pay for it, so that's just what I had. And like a cheap, shitty interface and whatever. And yeah, that was when I got into like multi-tracking things in a DAW, and once I started doing that, I had some experiences early on where we would like, save up money and go into a studio, and that's so stressful, man. Uh, Especially when you're poor and like you're against the clock, and it's like it's a lot easier when you can just do it on your own time. And like, yeah, I always found, like I said earlier, the creative process has always been the most fun for me. So I'd say since college was when I started getting into it. And then shortly after college, I did an internship at a studio for like a year, um, and in Virginia, and that was rad. They like, taught me how to solder cables and all this stuff. And uh, yeah, it taught me how to brew coffee.
These
all
are
the
things
things
you need
that
to
you have to
learn.
all the
These are
things you have to know when you work as a runner at a recording studio. It is a weirdly
crucial.
archaic industry in that, like, and since, like, I'm not really on a path now to like work at Sound City or something, like I don't spend much time in like big fancy studios because I I just don't love that vibe. And it is like they do like most industries don't make you work for free for years before they'll like let you in. It's kind of it's dog shit, but it is what it is.
Besides TV as well. TV
Oh yeah, I
does
guess, yeah, they probably do that there too. But yeah, eventually you're like, I'm 30 years old, I can't work for free in the middle of the night for you. I'm not going to do that.
you
um
say, hey, I have a gig at 12:30 a.m. I gotta get to that.
exactly.
I got
Exactly, I
shit
gotta
to do.
hightail it to Harvard and Stone.
I gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
big gig. uh
I got other stuff.
I did do some studio work when I first got to LA, and at this place in North Hollywood that was like mostly courted a lot of rap artists, and or like rap artists, like guys that wanted, it was a lot of people who came in and like wanted like the novelty of the studio experience, but like weren't ready to do work. So they would like roll in with like a bunch of Hennessy and just be like passing blunts around the whole time, which I'm game for. It was fun. But like they'd be
Who
like,
doesn't love
we're gonna get
Hennessy?
9 songs done tonight in this 4-hour window during which we brought all our friends and we're getting wasted. Like, so like that was kind of like, those kind of studio jobs are just like babysitting almost. You're just like trying to keep it as on track as you can and just manage expectations. And that's fine, but it's like it's not what I am really trying to do with myself. So
Um, that's an interesting path to get to where you are today. I mean, I feel like both of these within music and on the engineering side of things kind of both cross paths for you to end up where
yeah,
you are now.
I think I realized at some point that engineering seemed like a more reliable career path in a way, which is a stretch to say because there are ways to find a steady paycheck as a recording engineer or like an audio editing person. Uh, but it's also more, I'm a little more like, I'm kind of introverted. Like I said, I don't love performing. And yeah, I also don't love freelancing. Like I need that stability of knowing that I'm going to get paid next week and like I don't have to chase someone down for it. And so yeah, it's worked out.
It's hard to find that within any creative field, especially
It
music.
really is. Yeah, and I felt really lucky so I work for this company that makes meditation exercises, and so like it's pretty rad and it's very chill. And
I mean, it better be. It's got to
right.
be.
It's funny. Sometimes it gets stressed out and I have to take a step back. I'm like, am I really stressing out about the meditation gig? Like, I think it's going to be cool.
Counterproductive, but sometimes it does happen.
Hey, work's work. But especially through COVID, man, like, I know a lot of guys that are really talented and somewhat successful, like recording and mix engineers, and they just weren't able to work for a while. So it was pretty hard, but I felt pretty fortunate to have a steady gig through that. Actually, our company did really well because everyone wanted to zen out during those years. So
And that company is called HemiSync, right? Am I saying that
Yeah,
correctly?
yeah, that's right.
Okay. And are you creating the soundscapes for that yourself or working with others to
It's
produce
a
this?
mixed bag. I've been there for a long time, and for years it was always other we would source the music, or like artists would come to us and say like there were a lot of people we worked with a lot, and so my gig would be, we use these, there's the founder of the company created this like a kind of these formulas for tones to like put, originally it wasn't under music, it was just like raw tones with like surf sounds or something, and eventually
Beat the Beach Boys that your father hated. Yes,
exactly,
essentially,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually they figured out how to put it under music, and so when I got hired, that was the gig for a long time, was like figure out how to put, which is cool, I got to use some of my music theory stuff that I got from college and figure out how to
And your
make,
saxophone playing. Yeah.
exactly,
Yes.
yeah, slip a little bit of subtle sax in there. uh and so yeah, a lot of it for years was just like kind of doing what we do but to other people's music and like making it a little more soundscapey. But in the past couple of years I've gotten to do more composition, which has been fun, and that's pretty fulfilling. Also, a lot of it is like voice editing, which is tedious but really good for my Pro Tools chops, so it's all good.
Oh, you stepped it up since the initial video
Yeah, yeah,
editor.
no
Okay.
longer in new window.
Like I didn't want to speculate of what kind of software you're using. I just wanted to
No,
get the
no.
answer.
I was a
Okay.
Logic guy for a while, and when I got to LA, they were like, "You're never gonna make it if you don't learn how to do Pro Tools." So,
Um, how important is environment when you're creating, like, I mean, stuff for this meditational soundscapes,
oh,
or even your own music, and even going a step beyond that, being behind the board?
I think it's everything, man. When you're behind the board, it's like you're that's kind of under your purview. Like you have to set the tone, and like what like I was saying before, a lot of times you're just like keeping things on track and being like, "All right, guys, we're having a great time, but if we want to get a song done today, should probably figure out what tempo it is and get going." And yeah, I think it's really important, man. Like whatever it is that you're doing, like um, like whether I'm playing as a session person or like, you're not always in charge of the vibe, but yeah, having a good zone and like being in the right headspace is everything, I think, because like if you in that situation you can let it happen, like like all the preparation has already come into, like you don't stress about it, you just like if everything's right, it just happens, I feel like. Whereas like if you're trying to force it, it doesn't always work out well that way, it doesn't always bear the best fruit.
Sure. But sometimes it does. Sometimes people need that, and then they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
force
that's
it,
true too, and
which
like
is interesting. Like, kind of
deadlines coax good work out too.
also Coke does as well. But
Yes,
that's
yes, well, back to Kenny Loggins.
to the danger zone, to the danger zone, straight there. Um, does doing these session kind of playing stuff, like you mentioned, and you did it for Ryan as well, right? Ryan Pauly,
Yeah,
and
I've played on his last couple records, and
awesome.
since he's in the last few years has gotten more into producing other people, I've gone in to play here and there on some other stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Does being in that position kind of bridge the gap between creating your own music and engineering?
Yeah. Well, there are times where I'm yeah, it depends. I I like to not have to think about playing and engineering at the same time. Although I do for myself, I'm always doing that, but there's a lot less variables and I have control of everything, like uh if I'm like if I get called in to play bass on somebody's song and I'm like having to learn the song that day and figure out a part, I'd prefer not to also be stressing out about like the bass tone or like the signal path of how everything's like, it's nice not to have too many things on your plate at one time.
You like
Um,
to solely stress about one thing per.
yeah, love stress.
Yeah.
Love stress.
Need the stress, but need it to be like super just concentrated. Like,
Singularly focused. Yeah.
yeah, this is the thing that I need to stress over right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll move on when this is just
Yeah.
reaches a breaking point, or we solve it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way to make art.
Yeah. Yeah. Stressed as hell.
Yeah. Pushed up, back against the wall, deadline. Yeah.
Yeah. Overly caffeinated, underslept, deadline.
Yeah.
Get it.
It's needed. It's crucial. And you, speaking of this, kind of taking all these approaches. I mean, you're man of many hats. It seems like you're doing just all of the things you've had your hand in.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is like just trying to keep a lot of tools sharp because you never know what opportunity is going to come along one day, and like
Pro
try,
Tools. Yeah.
try not to put yeah, exactly, try not to put all the eggs in one basket. I I knew I wanted to do something with music, but I don't really have any, I never really had any aspirations to like be out on the road a lot and be performing and like have my name on marquees and shit like that. Like I prefer to lay low and be a little more like behind the curtain in that way.
Yeah. That being said, you have announced that you are playing a tour for 2023.
Yeah, my name's going to be on all the curtains.
Yeah. It's a winter league, and you're going to be just going wherever
Wherever
there's
it's
snow.
cold, just
Yeah.
go wherever it's cold. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I moved to LA, is because I love the snow.
Yeah.
The beautiful snow that we get here.
Why does anybody else come out here? That's it. It's
Yeah,
California in general.
hate
Yeah.
the cold.
Southern California cold. Everybody's looking for it.
Yeah, I love that SoCal cold.
Speaking of kind of playing and producing and recording and doing all these different things, this is what you did on your last album, your most recent album, right? You wrote
Yeah,
it, recorded it, mixed, mastered the whole shebang.
yeah. I gradually over the last like handful of years, I've like certain projects will call for, like I produced a record for a buddy at one point, and he was like, do you think you can figure out how to master it? Like, I really don't want to hire somebody else. And like, I think he wanted to just keep it in house a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could try to figure that out. And so like, I didn't know shit about what I was doing. And I just like took a bunch of recordings that we liked and that were kind of in the same genre, figured out. I just kind of would like put them on on the timeline in Pro Tools and like try to reverse engineer like what the final product was and how I could get mine to sort of match that. And I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I'm sure a lot of people would argue I still have no idea. But yeah, so like I did it for a buddy in like 2018, and then it just kind of, I did it for another buddy and then another buddy. And then eventually someone asked me if they could recommend me to somebody. And so, yeah, now I've done it a bunch and it's super fun. So yeah, I didn't really ever expect to get into that, but now I really like it. And I think a lot of this, like the years that I spent doing all the meditation stuff, have kind of like made it so that it makes sense that that's like a place for me to lean into, because like my ears are like pretty attuned to listening for like little inconsistencies and things I can fix. And yeah, I don't know, I enjoy it, so it's cool.
Do you personally meditate?
I do. I wish I was more diligent about it. I have this thing where I often just doze off. And then I'll be like, for a long time, I'd be like, I'm doing it wrong. Why do I keep falling asleep? It's because I'm fucking tired. I don't get enough sleep. But yeah, I try to, most of the stuff that we like the products we offer for my work are like an hour long. And if I'm in the zone for that, like I'm gonna fall asleep. I can't like get in that headspace and stay conscious for that long, really. But yeah, I like to do even just like 5 to 10 minutes in the morning. Kind of helps level things out, and sometimes as needed as the stress levels rise throughout the weeks. I do like it. I'm not like gonna go like David Lynch, write a book about TM or anything, but I do think it's pretty cool, and I think it's good for me anyways. So
going back to music with your second album, Virginia Slim Comes Riding In. That's do I have that the title
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
That was the album that you did write and record and you did it all yourself, correct?
I did. Yeah. So the last record I did, I had a bunch of buddies play on, but I recorded it all and I mixed it and mastered that one. But this time I have a bunch of other stuff in the can that I haven't finished yet. And I got to a point last year where I had a bunch of stuff that was like half finished and I didn't know. I had to like stand back and like I had an idea of what the like was an album was coming together, but then it became too much and I had to whittle it down. And I decided to whittle it down to all the ones that I had just done by myself and just like focus on that direction. And so I have a bunch of other stuff that I need to finish that has my buddies on it. But I thought it'd be cool because I had never really done that where like in the past where I had recorded and played. The second Big Air album was called Don't Care, and I like produced and recorded and I played everything myself, but then I had somebody else master it. So that's the closest I had been to this before.
Which is pretty fucking close.
Pretty
Like you're
close.
only missing
Pretty,
one
pretty close, yeah.
one aspect.
But I guess I also on that one I used drum loops and a lot. I just like fucked them up through a tape machine, which was really fun. Um, Although now I have no desire to work with tape machines ever again. I find them incredibly stressful. uh, but it's a cool vibe, but not necessary in my opinion. Um, Anyways, yeah. So this one I did everything, and uh, partly just because like it was I was working on songs. I took some songwriting classes through this program called School of Song, which is really cool. My buddy Steven he like runs it with another guy, and they get famous artists to come teach a songwriting course. And so like I took one with Luke Temple from Here We Go Magic, and then I did another one with Robin Pecknold from Fleet Foxes. But they have a bunch of. They just announced one with one of the guys from Dr. Dog is coming up soon, and so I had some of the songs from the new album came from those classes, and so that was like I'd kind of taken a break from writing for a while, and so that kind of lit the fire. And yeah, I mean, I have all this stuff. I enjoy making music, and it was at a time where like I didn't really feel like waiting around to get somebody. Like it's like, well, I have this song, I can get so and so in next week to play drums, or I could just do it now. And I'm not really a drummer, but I'm pretty good with Pro Tools, so I can make it sound okay.
Man, that's awesome. That's a big feat to accomplish.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was fun, and I'm sure I'll do it again. But it's also, it's nice to play in a room with other humans too. There are things that happen in those situations that don't happen organically by yourself.
That's up to, that's personal opinion right
Yeah,
there. That's just
yeah, that's
PO.
true. That's true.
How long did it take from the writing process to mastering it? What was that kind of time duration?
It's probably about 6 months. Towards the end of last year was when I started doing songs that I ended up cutting a lot. I probably had 20 songs that I did all by myself, and then I whittled it down to like 13. But yeah, I think the first ones that I did that are on the album were in January, and it's just something that I would like chip away at on nights and weekends when I wasn't working.
Wow.
So yeah, it took a little while, and I had a lot of other projects come through, like mostly mastering stuff through that time as well. Which is cool because each project is like a chance to try different things and learn some new stuff that I can then take back to my own thing. Yeah, so it was cool, and I look forward to doing it again. But I also enjoy making music with other humans sometimes.
Again, that's just a PO.
Yeah,
That's personal opinion.
that's true.
Um, how did you feel? I mean, because this just recently came out. This is like it was the 3rd of November, correct? Or early
Yeah,
November?
third or fourth. Yeah, it's been almost a month.
Almost a month. I mean, how did that feel like when it finally came out and it was
Felt
finally
good, man.
released?
I like this, I've put out a lot of albums over the years with bands I've been part of, and like whether it had my name on it or whatever. Not as many times, but I feel like the landscape is always changing. So in a way, it's like there's always this new learning curve of like, oh, how do I put out an album this year? Like what are the kids doing? How do I do this? And like 10 years ago, it was like you just write people, and like like I was able, that first Big Air album I did was I like somehow very easily was able to get a blurb on Pitchfork about this self-released cassette tape that some kids made in Virginia, and that was cool. But and then like I've worked with labels on and off through the years, and like some of them are really good at helping with press stuff, and have been years where I felt like that shit mattered and would like get caught up and feeling like it was really important, and I had to hustle to get the word out. The first album that I put out under my own name was called New Dystopia, and that came out, that was one of 3 records that I produced that came out in 2020, and it was such a letdown of like there was just so much going on that year. I felt like nobody really cared, and it was hard to get people's attention. And I also like I had reached this point where I still mostly feel this way, where I'm like pretty over physical media. Like I don't know that it needs to exist. And like I don't, for me personally, in my music, like I'm not out touring, so I'm not like, there's no sense in pressing a bunch of vinyl that I'm not gonna I have boxes of shit that I've never sold from previous albums over the years in my garage. I don't need any more of that, and everyone's just going to stream it anyways. So like when I put out New Dystopia, I was like, no physical copies, just digital. And weirdly, I feel like because of that, it was hard to get people to pay attention. And it's odd because there's like I only did 50, like a small run of 50 tapes for this record, but people pay, and it's the people who aren't going to buy it, but like because they see that it physically exists, they like, I don't know, it's weird. A lot more people noticed this time. Yeah, so like I felt like the last one kind of fell on deaf ears a little bit, and
that's that it was
I was
it
like,
was
am I cutting out? But nice pun. Yeah,
sorry, good.
no, it's good. Yeah, and then like every time you put something out, it's like I said, my relationship with music is always changing, and like your goals are shifting, and like at this point I'm mostly doing it for myself, man. Like it's so much more fulfilling that way. It's so much less stressful. I just like, I used to put so much pressure on like, and have some like such lofty expectations for like what was going to happen, and so much more fulfilling to just make what you want to make and then put it out for whoever cares and wants to hear it, and like let it do its thing. Yeah, so like I feel like I've got a healthier relationship with it now, and it worked out that like I feel like people have seemed to, we sold a lot of pre-sale copies of the tape, and people seem to be reacting well to it, so it's been good.
Yeah, it's definitely awesome. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. That being said, though, I mean, we're ready to put out on vinyl whenever you are. That's the whole point of this meeting. We're just trying to press it, man.
If you want to put that bill.
I already put the order in, so I mean,
cool.
You'd expect
Somebody's
it out.
dad's got a credit card we can use.
Yeah, 2026 is what we're looking at for launch date for the actual
album.
Yeah,
all the pressing plants still clogged up with all those Taylor Swift variations, probably.
Yeah, which I was the head honcho of that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna
be
around
were
the
you
bush.
Behind the Lavender?
I like to push the same album in different colorways. Blink-182, for example, we got blue, green, red, gold.
That way I can buy it 4 times.
It's for the people.
4 times for each color.
Yes.
Total of 16 copies. That's about what I need.
Good luck. They're already sold out. So yeah. Does it feel different to you when there is a tangible kind of like, oh my gosh, this is that record that I was working on, or myself, when like I was sitting right here and I came up with that like line, or I was like developing that lick like over here or whatever. I mean, does that kind of baffle you when you're sitting there and looking at a physical kind of copy or something like
I
that?
think I get somewhat the same feeling of, if I just pull it like an old record up on Spotify that I didn't press copies of. But there is like anytime that you can like spend a lot of time working on something and then stand back and like have a representation of that work and that time spent is cool. It's a little nostalgic, like you were saying. You're like, oh, I remember when I cooked that up, or like, I remember the weird conversation that led to those weird lyrics or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, it's just fulfilling. Like I'm sure that like myself, you've probably had jobs well, you said you worked at a grocery store, so yeah, you've
Sure
definitely
did.
had jobs where you toil away, and then at the end of the day, you're like, I guess you could be like, oh, those shelves sure are stocked.
I wasn't
Yeah.
shelving, man. I was courtesy clerk, dude.
Oh
Okay,
shit.
come
Well,
on,
I didn't
come
mean
on
to.
now. Offend me on my own podcast. No, but I definitely see what you're saying. Being a session musician and like you've mentioned, like guitar and drums and this kind of stuff, being a multi-instrumentalist, what instrument are you most comfortable behind? Do you feel the most proficient in? Mine is
um,
saxophone. Like, let me
Minus
just
saxophone. I
state that.
probably at this point the bass. I've played guitar the most. That's what I, studied at school, which is hilarious to say. Uh, but there are a lot of dudes that are really, really great at the guitar. I feel like I'm a solid guitar player, but I'm not like I'm just never a big shredder, and uh, so like I can cover more genres on bass, and I feel like I'm a little like I might be like a little ahead of the average guitar player, but I feel like I'm like way ahead of the average bass player. I've spent more time in bands playing bass, um, and it's just really fun. It's a unique role in a band dynamic, I think, and a lot of people who play bass, I don't think like really understand the role that they're playing.
It's
Like
crucial.
it is like you kind of have to take ego fully out of it and just like understand that you're the glue between the rhythm and the harmony. And I've played enough guitar in bands to know what guitarists need and want from bass and support, and same thing with drums. And yeah, it's a cool role. And I also, in the days that I was doing it on stage, I liked that I could just kind of lurk in the shadows.
You're like, I'm here, but you're not noticing me.
Yeah, nobody's looking at me. I don't It's fine.
That's a good position to be in.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the most difficult part of getting the new album, completed? What was the hurdle that was just the most difficult to conquer?
It's a good question.
Appreciate it.
Great question. uh
Even better.
um it's hard to especially when you're the only one involved start to finish musically. Like you really benefit from having other people's ears on things, and having things, if you have someone else mix it, they're doing that in a different room with their ears, and so they're making decisions that you know could make up for things that I might be inclined to overdo. Same thing with mastering. So there's this I read this magazine called Tape Op, and uh they always have these funny ads in there. It's like, dudes advertising their mastering services and stuff. But for years they've been running this ad that's a dude. It's like a guy and his sister at the prom, and it's like, mastering yourself, that's like taking your sister to the prom. And I always think about that. It's pretty funny. Uh, so it is like it's hard to. I get indecisive sometimes, and like same thing happens if you're gonna have somebody else mix it and master it too, where you're like, oh, is it ready? Is it good? Is the snare too loud on that? Like you can hyper fixate on all these little things. Uh, so that gets hard to let go of. Like having somebody else mix and master is almost a safety net in that way, where it's like you can focus on just the production and like the big picture, and then have them like get it really dialed in. And so yeah, I guess I tend to like hyper focus on little things, and it's hard. It gets hard to be like at some point you just have to make yourself fucking stop. You're like, it's not going to get any better if I nudge that snare down. It's not like, yeah, the bass might be too loud, but I like it that way. And that's what we're rolling with. And yeah, things like that. So it's like, you know, you'll think I'll listen in here and I'll think it sounds great in the studio, and then I take it for a spin to do like the car test, and then like, oh, this mix is fucked. I got to reinvent the whole thing. And yeah, it's hard not to like, it's a slippery slope. One of my mentors at a studio I used to work at used to always talk about the line of diminishing returns with the project, where it's like at some point you're making it worse, and
Yeah.
like and just stop. Like it's
Now,
not going to get any better.
do you think that's noticeable, like clearly noticeable in hindsight? Looking at, oh, that's where it got fucked up. Like at
No,
this point, that it was like it started to deteriorate.
uh, there have been, yeah, it gets that way a lot. You can in the moment you can be like, some, it often like that, like I was saying before, I'd like go listen in the car and be like, oh well, now I think I gotta adjust these drums a little bit. And then you come back in and you think like maybe you have a note of like one little thing you need to do, but that changes the relationships of everything. And it's like adding a little bit of one color makes the balance of all the other colors seem wrong. And so sometimes you start going down this rabbit hole of like adjusting and adjusting. And so yeah, I always, whenever I'm going to make some changes, I like duplicate a session file so that like if I fuck it all up, I can just still go back and not like. So yeah, there are definitely times where I would spend like hours going down the wrong direction, uh but that's just part of it. And like I said, I think that it's still fun. So
Sure. Have you experienced going down that rabbit hole so far that you actually broke through to a different idea that actually
yeah,
complemented the song better than you had previously had before?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, a lot of times that stuff happens with other people, where it's like you'll I had a tune not that long ago where I brought in a drummer, and I was like, it was going to be this really mellow thing. Like I had demoed it out on guitar, and I like thought I was telling him what I wanted him to do, and he was just like hearing a totally different idea that to me was bonkers. He was like, "Why don't we make it like an upbeat krautrock song?" And I was like, "No!" Like in my head, I was like, "Have you heard anything that I've said or any of this music?" And then but it's like, yeah, we obviously got to try it now because you said it, and then you do it, and you're like, "Oh wow, awesome!" And like that's to me the benefit of playing with other people is like those rabbit holes where you're like, what if we did it like this? Or like, you just you don't get that as much when it's just one guy in a room, of like, what if we flipped it upside down and made it this genre instead of that genre? And sometimes that can be really fun. Sometimes it's a hilarious waste of time. You got to
Uh,
roll the dice though.
do you feel like you're the guy to speak up on that matter when you're performing with other people? When you're in a room with other people trying to record something? Are you like, let's push it like this instead of like this? Are you that guy?
Not always. It's easier to be that guy when it's somebody else's material, because like you don't already have like, if it's my song and like I wrote it before a session and I call people in to play it, I've heard it a million times in my head at this point, and like I know what I want and what I expect. And so I need other people to do that in that case, because I like my brain is like, you're like, this is what it is. I've crafted it in my head, and then now it's just make it reality. But when it's somebody else's thing, then it's easier to hear it differently, and
Breathe
where
some
they're like,
fresh air into it.
yeah, or they're telling you what it is, but like they can't give you every little detail that's in their head about it. And so when you're like, well, why don't we make it sound like this instead of that? They're like, oh, I never would have thought of that, because they've already heard it so many times in their head, like they've already decided what it is. uh
This is
yeah,
the
so
only thing it could be. You're already boxed in,
right,
but then
yeah.
somebody
And
breaks
so
through that
like,
box.
and I've learned over the years that sometimes like if you're really confident and like sure of what you want, sometimes you have to be like, no, we're not going to try that. That's not what I want to do. Do this. and but it's worth it if you're able to, and you have the room full of people that are open-minded. I like those are the best musical experiences I think I've had, or when it's people just throwing out ideas and you're like, let's try it. And because you know you never, it's like it's never a waste of time to try something. And sometimes when someone suggests something that you think is a bad idea, it's better to say let's try it and have them see that it's a bad idea than or find that you're wrong, than to say no, that's a bad idea and just kill the vibe in the room. You know.
Awesome. What's your favorite song off this new album?
I think Get Your Mind There is probably my favorite. Every song on that record I rip the drums off of from something else. And because like I said, I'm not a drummer by trade. Um, and so I would just play along with stuff that I like. And that one was a Talking Heads song, Circle It Back, and a nice little callback. And yeah, I was just playing to stuff that like made me feel good. It was kind of like some self therapy, you know. I was like, I'm just gonna jam out things that I like, and
Alanis Morissette, these kind
yeah,
of things.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's extremely ironic. Yeah, so yeah, eventually I was like, well, why don't I just make a record of tunes that make me feel good? And like, because that seems like it would be really fun. And so yeah, like I tried to get and some of the ones that I ended up cutting were things where like I like without even really consciously meaning to got into like politically leaning lyrics and stuff. And so ultimately I was like, I don't think I want any of that on here.
So happened with Rage Against the Machine. That's exactly how they ended up. They're like, why do I keep on writing out Bush? And then that
Yeah,
just
no,
it's
no politics. Let's not do the politics, they said.
yeah.
I
They're
sat
like,
one time when I was living in Echo Park, I sat next to Zach De La Roca at Silver Lake Ramen. And yeah, I was like, that was one of my better LA celebrity sightings.
they ask you to slide over, and you're like, fuck you. I won't do what you tell me. Because
These
that's
bulls
what
are not on parade.
his number gets called up, and you're like, now you do what they told you. That's
He
there you go, dude.
man, back to soundtracks that I had in the early days. I had the Godzilla soundtrack, the one with like the Puff Daddy version of Kashmir on it.
Oh, okay.
And there was a really good Rage song on there called No Shelter. And so it's worth checking out because like they got specifically asked to write a song for this big blockbuster movie. And all of the lyrics to that song are about how fucked up cinema is and like how it ruins people's minds. And like it's really funny. Like I guess they didn't listen to it before they put it in the movie.
Have you seen that little clip of Rage Against the Machine playing on like it's like a BBC like whatever 2 or something like that,
Yeah.
and it has like a little like caption. It says like, oh, they were asked to not curse on this, like because it's live.
Oh,
And
but
then
I assume that they were cursing.
they had to rage against it, man.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had to.
They
So
don't
then
they don't abide by the machine.
yeah, your boy Zach started cursing, and everybody's like, well, what do you think he's gonna do? You know?
Yeah. Get this man some ramen. Satiate him. It'll stop the rage. It'll ease the rage. It was kind of funny to see because you know, like when I picture him, I picture like 1997. Zach
Long dreads, kind of.
Yeah, and he still had the hair, but you know, he just looked more like what I like when I picture Bob Marley or something. Like he was older, obviously, like in his 40s or 50s by the time I saw him. He had a little less rage in him.
The fire's still there.
I'm sure it is.
Do not test him, Rob. I'm telling you, man. It's gonna end up bad, dude. You're gonna become the machine. Rob, thank you so much for sitting down and chat with me,
Yeah,
man.
man, of
Absolute
course.
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
But before I let you go here, I got to do some promo for you. So, Rob's new album, the one that we've been talking about, the one that's mixed, mastered, written, is out now.
It is. I think I've got one right here. Got the cassette tapes. You know, if you're still on that physical media.
That's limited. Virginia Slim Comes Riding In is out now. And you released it with someone? What was the
It's
record
a
label?
label that I've been working with out of Virginia, which it just felt appropriate on this one. My buddy Warren has a label called Warhen Records, and
Warhand
yeah, it's a
Records.
basement label out of Charlottesville. Shout out
Awesome.
Warhen.
Killer. Did they also release the other one?
The other one I did by myself because it felt a little weird to have a label release an album that I just put up digitally.
And it's called New Dystopia, right?
Yeah, that one's called New Dystopia. It's a little more like alt country leaning than this one. There's a little more acoustic stuff on there.
It's pretty rage at you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
And both those albums are streaming everywhere, right? Wherever
Yeah,
people get their
all over
music.
the place. You can find them on Bandcamp as well.
Killer. And that's the best way to support you, right?
Yeah, yeah. robdobson.bandcamp.com.
.com. .org. Awesome, man. And visit the website too, right? To go find those your meditational
Oh yeah.
soundscapes.
Yeah. So my website is robdobsonii.com. I'm the third. So somebody took Rob Dobson music.
So like fuck it. I'll be the original me.
Hey,
I'll be the most B I can be.
yeah.
I.
There's a couple other. It's a more common name than I realized. There's a few out there that are musicians, so it's a little confusing.
It's nice. It's nice to brand yourself with like-minded
Hey,
people. These are the people that you want to be in the studio with, that you've been talking about.
Exactly.
It's different.
Exactly.
It just feels different.
Yeah, they all got to have the same name as me.
And HemiSync. One more time, HemiSync, and that can be found.
Yeah, hemisync.com is the website for that stuff, and it's pretty cool. If you're into meditation, I recommend checking it out.
Awesome, good deal. And at your website, people could see what you've mixed and mastered and done all your fun stuff on.
Yeah, that's all on there.
And sessioned.
Yeah.
You're man of too many hats, Rob.
Yeah, well, there's a couple hats.
Many. And is that it? Did we miss anything?
I think that's it, man.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you so much.
Smash a like and subscribe.
You said it, not me. I
You
would
got to hit the bell.
For the what? For the what's it called? Well, I was goading you to say notifications, but you got me to say it. You got to hit the bell. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Cheers.
No, thank you so much. I'm gonna talk to you in a second. I'm gonna stop recording this. Thank you, brother.
Cool. Yeah, dude.